أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. So we have been stating throughout that there has been a huge shift from what the Prophet brought and the sort of Islam that he set up and the role model that he was, which drove people to the actualization of their potential through a very strict understanding of God centricity to where we have come today. There are many fanciful ideas that we have, and we have compromised God centricity with Prophet or Imam centricity. And as a result, all the things that the Prophet came to remedy have crept back within the folds of faith in the name of Islam itself, and the justifications are offered by Islam. Sectarianism, intolerance, hatred of others, not giving salvation to other than our own group. These were the things that tore the previous communities apart. A state of ignorance. Do we need to really provide evidences for this? Within a community of almost 2 billion people, how many supreme humanitarians has the Muslim community produced? Tell me. How many minds have we produced? We have the Quran, don't we? We have the exemplary model of the Blessed Prophet, and after him, the Blessed Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi. You can't top these people. They are no less than their noble brothers, the prophets that went before them. But what is our state? The Blessed Prophet came to a community. This is a bit of a prelude because we need to conclude the series today. The Blessed Prophet came to barbarians. Within 23 years, there was a shift in paradigm. From people who could not understand beyond the sands of Arabia to explorers, scientists. Where are we today? There has been a huge shift away from what he brought. He brought a singular message that you, human beings, you are the sparks of the divine. In you is vested the light of the most sacred one. He says to you, do not look at the moons and the stars and venerate them. They are indeed subservient to you. O man and jinn, if you can penetrate within the realms of the heavens, then do so. Your God gives you consent. Go and grab them in the palm of your hands. It's all yours, take it. Internally, he said, be so refined that the godly gem manifests itself through you. He brought about God to such an intimate position within human soul that God is your only calling. He is at the helm of your universe. Every beauty that you can envisage, every greatness that you can aspire to, that is enclosed within God. Tend to Him, turn to Him, surrender to Him, remove your own restrictions and lack, and allow Him to complete your light through His self. What is the message of the Quran? Think about it. From the beginning till the end, God removes every form of distraction from the minds of the children of Adam. He says, do not worship the sun or the moon or the stars. Tend to me only. It's a message of unity of God. He does not deny the existence of superior beings and entities. But the bottom line is, do not be distracted by any of them. Your calling is to me. You are greater than all those superior entities put together. If only you knew what you are. Imagine the superstitious Arabs who used to offer to their gods and idols for every single decision that they were going to make. From that state to people who crushed every idol. The Prophet said, take your decision and then say to God, Astaghfir billah. I seek the best outcome from you, O God. God responds in the Quran, He says, and then if bad befalls you, it is only because I will it, and there is some beneficial gain for you in that bad that is befalling you. Trust me, don't go back to your superstitious ways. If your arm gets cut off in my way, I will replace it with another one, a far more befitting one, where you need it most, in the hereafter. All of these things that the Prophet brought have been chipped away slowly and gradually by us, his community. And we have justified it all theologically, so that no one says it is inconsistent with the message of the Prophet. For as soon as anybody says this is inconsistent with the message of the Prophet, we bring the hadith of the Prophet to counter it. It is amazing, isn't it? That the Quran is there, the book of God. The Prophet of Allah said, if I say something, check it against the book of God. If it is inconsistent with the book of God, throw it away. What do we say? We say, no, God gives the authority to the Blessed Prophet to cancel his own book. How amazing is this? Where have our minds have gone? So all these theologies that are inconsistent with unity of God and centrality of God have crept in the name of the Blessed Prophet and the Imams. So that absolute infallibility that is God's, we gave it to other than God. The predominance of the word of God, we gave it to hadith. The absolute control of God over all affairs, we gave it to the Prophet and his family. The absolute authority of God to legislate, we took it away from him. What remains for God now? He has become totally redundant. I know now, the people will say, well, no, God is not redundant, we do turn to him. I will say Muhammad Rasulullah came to a community and he said, Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu. They just said la ilaha illallah, from warring people in Arabia to conquerors of the four corners of the world. Imagine, from superstitious people to explorers, from people who could not read and write to the contributors to literature, and people who brought about inventions, scientific inventions. For them, La ilaha illallah was something else. La ilaha illallah has lost that potency and that meaning. The reason for this is that the whole idea was that we turn to God and God empowers us and tells us what you yourself are. God says, don't sit there and pray to me for cure. You are the cure. You are my hand. Find the cure. Don't sit there and make du'as and say, oh God, feed the poor. You are my hand. Feed the poor. Don't say to God, oh Lord, send an ark from the heavens to conquer the roaring waves. Create an ark and conquer the waves. Don't say to me, what is up there in space? Go in space and find out what is there and conquer it all. Be my steward. Didn't Allah said, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa? I will make a khalifa upon the earth. What is a khalifa? The one in whose chest resides the breath of God. So the whole idea of Islam was to bring humanity back upon the path of completing its own journey. Now the Quran acknowledges that those who went before you, O Muhammad, they have drifted away. So this message of Islam was not exclusive to Prophet Muhammad and his community. The Quran is adamant it's not exclusive. In fact, and we've quoted this somewhere, when the Prophet used to pray in Medina, he used to ask the Jews, come and pray your salah with us, because they also pray salah. The people of different communities will pray salah together. Imagine the broadness of the Blessed Prophet. Today Shia Sunni can't pray with each other. The Prophet is saying to the Jews, come and pray with us. On another occasion, the Blessed Prophet said to the people of the book, come, unite with us on the worship of one God. There were at least 5 Abrahamic faiths at that point, right? With the inclusion of Zoroastrians and the Sabians. This is how broad the prophetic outlook was, with God centricity. Center yourself with God. Make God your pinnacle of success. Make Him your focus. Surrender to Him, move towards Him. Let Him relieve you of your restrictions and bring you to the fruition of your potential. Now, as we go into this, I want to make a point. What purpose can God attain from me and you on the face of this earth? What does God not have? Hussein Salamullah alayhi says in one place in his dua Arafah, he says, "Oh Allah," and he's thinking through this as he's reciting this beautiful supplication. He says, "Oh Allah, you give me before the need arises. Then you ask me to give something back. What is already yours, you ask from me back. Then you thank me, multiply it 70 times over and give it back to me. But it was yours in the first place. What do you lack anyway?" What does He lack that He wants from me and you? He doesn't lack anything by definition. Allah ghani wa antum fuqara. Allah is needless, you are the ones in dire need. Is that not so? This is our understanding of God. What can a parent want from a child when the parent is fully accomplished? What can the parent want? The parent only wants one thing, that the child comes of age. What does a teacher want from a student? That the student accomplishes his own intellectual potential. That's the only thing God wants, and that's the only thing God can want. That we come of age and we complete our journey. That's all He wants. And He's saying, don't be distracted. Direct yourselves to me and complete yourselves. Don't look left, don't look right. Just look straight and complete yourselves. So the whole journey of humanity is one of evolutionary growth. Grow scientifically, grow morally, but fundamentally, grow spiritually to God. Now, it is our failure that we value people on the basis of superhuman attributes, don't we? That this man is so strong, he can break the moon in two. We said the Prophet never broke the moon in two. He didn't need to break the moon in two. That is child's play, breaking moon in two. What is the real exemplary nature of the Prophet is that you stand in Mecca with all that power, unrestricted control, and you say to your enemies, you are all forgiven. That is the exemplary. That is the superhuman quality. That you stand in Mecca and you send a person of different color who is not an Arab on top of the Kaaba and ask him to give the first adhan ever after the establishment of Islam, not caring for slave or master, Arab or non-Arab, black or white, and saying he is the best of you, the one who can break the idols of racism and discrimination. That is the real superhuman. The one who, despite utmost control, when he dies, he doesn't have anything. Obviously, we know he had fadak and he had given it away, but I'm just saying, he doesn't have anything to his possession. Can you imagine the superhuman quality of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? But we are used to this notion, the superhumans are those who can control nature, who have ilmul ghaib. Tell me, after having ilmul ghaib, if a person morally is unsound, can that be an exemplary person? If after having the control of Sulaiman, a person is spiritually deficient, can that be a role model? The greatest achievement is what goes on inside. Not all these supernatural qualities that we associate with the Prophet and his family. Those are for Allah, and Allah keeps it exclusively for Himself. And if He has given it to anybody else, it's only an arbitrary giving. That's not the real giving. The real giving is when the author gives himself. Can you not understand this? If Qais were to go to his Layla and the Layla bestows him with gifts, the Qais will say, "What have you given me? Layla, I am after your heart. I don't want your kingdom. I live for you. I die for you. give your soul to me. If Allah gives the whole of paradise to us and the whole of universe and the 8 paradises to us, if Allah does not give His own beauty to us, then what has Allah given us? We are the most deprived people, aren't we? Doesn't Hussein say, Ma wajada man faqadak, O Allah, what has he found, the one who has lost you? Wa ma faqada man wajadak, O Allah, what has he lost, the one who has found you? What paradise! Even there the Quran says, Waladayna mazid, we have more to give. You haven't attained what you are after. But our way of valuing things is very wrong. The real completion is in here. And that is where we want to get to. Now we were talking about wilaya. There are 2 more types of wilaya that I need to touch upon very quickly before we go to the central theme today. One is wilaya siyasiya, the political authority. And one is siyasa akhlaqiya, the moral, ethical authority. You see, when we talk about the Blessed Prophet and the Imams, and we say that it was their right to govern and their right to rule, we need to revisit these thoughts. Nobody can rule upon the minds and the bodies of people until they consent to be ruled upon. It doesn't work otherwise. Today, I can come to the community and claim, God has sent me as your ruler. Would you accept me? I hope you do, but a majority might not. Can you recite Salawat, please? You know, when I make light humor, acknowledge it. Yeah? Authority can only work if people give authority. Think about it. A Muslim is only Muslim when he accepts Islam. Even God's authority does not work in the rightest way until a person consents to it. Can you see that? Like Rahafiddin, there's no compulsion in religion. A person has to accept an authority before it works. So until and unless we accept the authority of the Blessed Prophet, the authority of the Blessed Prophet does not work. Until we accept the Prophet, the authority of Imam Ali, it doesn't work. All this fighting about what happened 1,400 years ago, that was not the real authority. The real authority is something else. So political authority for these grand people means that in line with the existential property of growth, they will create a conducive environment that would liberate people and encourage them to come to the fullness of their existence. And that is the attainment of the real purpose. We cannot force people to complete themselves, can we? People have to be inclined to complete themselves. So the political authority of the Blessed Prophet and the Blessed Imams is in this, that they allow utmost liberty to people for self-determining their own future. Self-determination of their own future. No coercion. Give them full choices. Give them full respect. But endow them with a moral example and a spiritual example that they make right choices. Look at the clemency of the Blessed Prophet. Look at the clemency of Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi. We will see that they were exemplaries as political leaders, but that was not their real role. Their real role was something else that we need to come to in a little while. So with the leadership of somebody like the Prophet, you will not find a dictator who dictates. He will very softly direct the community towards self-liberation, towards empowerment of themselves, towards taking decisions, towards progression. Wasn't the intellect of the Prophet far superior than every other intellect at the time? Yet the Quran says to the Prophet, consult them in your affairs. Doesn't it? Surely the Prophet could have stood there and said, look, I know more than you. Jibreel guides me. I will tell you what to do. Study the life of the Prophet. When the Meccans were coming to fight him, and then the fight ensued at Uhud, the Blessed Prophet said to the Madinian community, we will stay within the 4 walls of Medina and we will receive the enemies here. We have a better chance. They outvoted him. They said, no, we will meet them outside Medina. The Prophet consented. In the Battle of the Trench, the Prophet sought advice. Salman said, look, this is the way we fight our battles. We dig a trench to prevent the oncoming army. The Prophet was consulting with them. That is what a leader is all about. And that is the political leadership, not imposing upon people and taking away their rights. Involve the people with a beautiful example so they evolve. All these ideas and theories of religious political leadership that we have, they do not appear to accord to the blessed example, to the example of the blessed Prophet. All of these leaderships are chipping away at the rights of people, autonomy of people, and discretion of people. In the name of wilaya, wilaya, wilaya. Wilaya did not mean tyrannical force. Wilaya meant a gentle nudge in the right direction, in accordance with the existential features. Now, the moral authority, what does that mean? That these exemplars teach us how to behave in a communal capacity, how to forgive, how to fare with clemency, how to be righteous, how to be truthful, so on and so forth. And that is their moral example. And of all the wilayah that we have discussed, these two are most important to govern the bodies in order to allow the souls to evolve towards God. Now we go to the real thing. But the centrality of their wilayah stems from the wilayah of God. Allah waliyul ladina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumat ila an-nur. Allah is the friend, the intimate companion of those who turn to Him in belief. He purges them from darkness and brings them into light. What does that mean? He brings them to the fullness of their existence. And the fullness of their existence is what? That the individual becomes godly like God, full of clemency, full of mercy, full of love, full of forgiveness, full of knowledge, full of charity, full of care. And that is the gradual purging of the soul from darkness, of restriction, of ego, of greed, of jealousy, of fear, of insecurity, to a supreme position of completion. 30,000 swords face Hussein, and he cries out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That is the supreme wilayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it penetrates within the soul. Hur comes to him. Instead of being offended, Hussein embraced him and said, Oh brother, not only I, our God forgives you. The spiritual wilayah of Muhammad and his family and the prophets who went before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhim ajma'in. This is the real point of their wilayah, how to complete the inner being. So now, several people have asked me over the past few days that you've deconstructed everything so fully. What remains of religion now? What remains? You've taken everything away. This dua, that dua, that dua. Let me just make a point here. I'm not saying don't read the duas. I'm saying read the duas, by all means read them. But don't attribute them to the Prophet or the Imams or anybody. Don't attribute them if you don't know. For that is wrong. And then when you read those duas or pray whatever we want to pray, don't pray the things that are inconsistent with the facts, historical facts. And don't pray those things that are inconsistent with God centricity. We cannot pray a dua to the Prophet or the Imam. Dua is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where does the Quran say you can pray dua to anybody else? Ud'uni, call me. Don't call anybody else. Yes? Yes, I know. We have istighatha and tawassul and all of that, and we need to discuss these things, or others might want to discuss it, because I'm going to close these chapters, inshallah, and somebody else can take it over. Do all of these things, but do it with God centricity and with proper knowledge. Now, the price of liberation is difficulty. It's not ease. I mean, many people have come to me and they said, look, initially when we listened to these messages, we felt liberated. And now we know it's more difficult because we have to think for ourselves now. Of course it's difficult. It's not easy, and life is meant to be difficult for us to evolve and struggle and grow. How can we be so lazy? You know, the Imams will take care of us on the day of Qiyamah. How can we be so lazy? How can the Imams pass us an exam for which we haven't studied? Does it make any sense to anybody? Well, why do we believe in these things? So now I will say, look at the practices institutionalized by the Prophet himself and the leverage that he has given to us. Let's talk about that a little bit before we progress further. The Prophet institutionalized salah. For us, salah means standing, bowing and prostrating. For the Prophet, salah meant, in accordance with the verse of the Quran, a moment of engagement with our God, with utmost presence of mind, that when we leave that presence of God, the souls are refined. Can you see that? That is what salah meant for the Prophet. Salah is attentiveness, focus, acknowledgement of the Lordship of God, nothingness of ourselves, our return to God. That is what salah is for the Blessed Prophet. If we begin to pray salah like that, then we start getting refined from within. If there was anything better than salah, the Quran would have made it obligatory. It isn't. Then we look at siyam, fasting. Fasting for us means to remain hungry and thirsty. For the Blessed Prophet, fasting was to abstain from desiring other than Allah. To become humble within ourselves. To thank Allah for the morsel that we eat. That was siyam for the Prophet. That was fast for the Prophet, not this hunger and thirst. This is body. As we reduced Muhammad and Ali Muhammad to bodily aspects, we've reduced all these beautiful aspects of devotions to the body. Can you see that? Zakat for us is to give money. For the Prophet, it was to purify the soul of greed, of possession, and to display deep-seated, painful care for humanity. That is salah, that is zakat for the Prophet. Hajj for us is to go to the house of God and go around it. Hajj for the Prophet was to acknowledge that I am one of the broader humanity. What a phenomenal devotional system the Prophet gave. If we can do this properly, we will be fulfilled from within. The Quran says, read the Quran slowly, read the Quran calmly, read the Quran. I often ask myself, how much of your religion, your mindset, your outlook is derived from the Quran? The answer is zero. There is nothing there. I see people fighting. Somebody made a will, and as a result, there were two parties that fought over a mosque or administration of a mosque and whatnot, and they were ready to go to the court. The Quran says that if a person makes a will and that will causes conflict, then the executor has no blame to modify it. This is the Quran. It's talking to us about the essence. Then the Quran says, do dhikr of Allah excessively. Remember Allah excessively. Remember Allah. When we remember Allah, for us, it's just chanting of the names. But for the Blessed Prophet, the remembrance of Allah meant what? Removal of the ego altogether and the prevalence of God. And finally, the prescription, the most phenomenal prescription that the Prophet gave was speak with God. Share with Allah. Make Him your intimate companion. Be open to God. I often ask, we pray Salah, we do khums and zakat, we go for Hajj numerous times, ziyarat, whatnot. Why are we afraid of that? Because we have never spent time with Allah. I'm just going to narrate this particular event because I think it's befitting. I would sit with my dear mother and she would say, but you haven't sat with me. I said, Mother, I've sat with you for an hour. She said, no, you haven't sat with me. You haven't been here. You have been here, but you've been distracted. This is how we are with God. He is no longer that intimate companion of ours. Look at Hussein, how he talks with Allah. in his solitude. Look at Ali. Oh Allah, who do I have but you? Look at how brilliantly, unashamedly he talks. He says, oh Allah, will you put me inside the fire? Will I be crying out for you and you will turn a deaf ear to me? Will I be burnt and tossed about flung about in the pits of hell and you will look at me and not do anything? I can't imagine, oh Allah, that you are this sort of a God. If you were to do that, I will cry out to you. Where are you, my friend? Where are you, the love of my heart? Where are you, the one that I've reached out to throughout my life? He said, if you were to do that, then I will cry out to you. I can't imagine you will do anything like that to me. Then he says to Allah, Allah, will you burn the tongue that has eulogized you? You bear witness of the love that is within my soul for you. I can't imagine you would do any of these things. Will you burn a forehead that has prostrated before you? The limbs that have been striving in your service? Oh Allah, hayhat ma dhalika dhannu bik. Far be from you such a thought. You are worthier than that. Then he says, oh Allah, you're the one who will put out the fires of hell in an instant. But then you have promised that you will fill it with man and jinn, so you will keep your promise. But your nature is such that you will extinguish it all. Imagine if we understood Allah to that level that we have the confidence that Ali has. Imagine. And how brilliantly he says, oh Allah, but who do I have other than you? If you're going to reject me, give me a door to which I turn. There is no door left. I've just come to your door. There is no door left. Where will I go? Imagine if we arrive at that level of intimacy with God. Imagine. Then will we not say like Akbar? Oh Father, if we are on the truth, what difference does it make whether death hastens to us or we run in the embrace of death? Wouldn't we be like that? Their real wilaya is in their spirituality. You see, as human beings, we cannot relate to God immediately. We have to grow into God and into godliness. So what do? We relate to the one who is like us, and we observe them. And in them, we see the divine spark that is within us without realizing. They manifest that beauty of godliness that awaits to be awoken within our chests in their whole being. And we helplessly fall in love with them. And as we helplessly fall in love with them, we begin to become like them. Only to realize that it was not they we loved, it was the light that prevailed over them that we loved. Can we see that? Does that make sense? That we helplessly fall in love with them only to realize that it was the light of all lights that we were in love with. How wonderful are the companions of Hussein. They say to Hussein, and I'll recite this, we will be torn into pieces, O Hussein. We don't know beyond you. That's it. That was their spiritual wilaya. Now look at how these people are. The Prophet's son is taken away from him, possibly in his lap. The Prophet looks at his son and says, indeed, great is my grief at your death. It tears the arteries of my heart. Undescribable is the pain. The eyes are tearful. But, O child, I shall not utter a word that is displeasing to my Lord. Then in his sentiment, he turns to God. He says, O Lord, he was yours. By priority, he has returned to you. As if to say, O Allah, how can I thank you for the time that you gave me with him? He was yours anyway. How beautiful is that spiritual sentiment. It is God's. Give it back to God if he decides to take it. How phenomenal is the sentiment of Hussein, where he says in his dua Arafah, and you've heard from me this from me on many occasions, he says, Oh Allah, allow me not to plead with you to delay a decree that you have chosen to hasten. If death is rushing to my Akbar, allow me not to resist. Allow me to embrace your decree. O Lord, allow me not to plead with you to hasten a decree that you have chosen to delay. If you have chosen not to assist me on this day, let me not plead to you to give me victory. Let me trust your decree. How wonderful are the sentiments of Ibrahim. As we hear, obviously, we are recounting his sentiment that Jibreel says to him, Ibrahim, ask your God to save you from this inferno. He says, Jibreel, he knows my state. If he wishes to burn me, then let him burn me to ashes. If he wishes to save me, then let him save me. On this day, I shall utter not a word to him. What a phenomenal example. Their deep-seated spirituality. When we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, we are for Allah and we return to Allah, it means that everything other than God has to be given away. I associate my body, my prestige, my name, my lineage, my property, my family, my religion with me. All of it has to go before I return to the owner of the truth. Because everything else is alien. I am none of these things. So their spiritual example is the real wilaya. That has got nothing to do with the wilaya of siyasa. That's got nothing to do with political authority. It's a timeless one. It's the essence of wilaya. It's got nothing to do with takwiniya and tashri'iyya. This is the essence of all wilaya. Now let's revisit that hadith. Bunya al-Islam ala khamsa. That Islam is based on 5. Salah, zakat, Sawm, Hajj, and wilaya. Islam's pillar are 5. Prayers, fasting, zakat, Hajj, and wilaya. And had it not been for wilaya, none of the others would have been accepted. Why? Because wilaya is the love that resides deep within the heart. Until and unless there is that love for God, what difference is a prayer going to make? Can you see that? Until and unless there is love for God, what difference is that hunger going to make, or that Hajj going to make, or that zakat is going to make? The whole purpose is that the inner being begins to evolve. And that is where wilaya needs to be. And fundamentally and primarily, that wilaya is the wilaya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My time is over. I just want to make a few more points. I've noticed often that people who are afraid, when they hear of the example of Hussein ibn Ali, they become fearless. People who are greedy, when they hear of the Blessed Prophet and his family, they are able to let go of their greed and share with others. People who are unforgiving, ask them for the name of Hussein. They will give everything away. I will say this, that the community is a beautiful community. It has the potential to arrive at the pedestal of godliness and contribute so meaningfully. I heard a Salafi scholar today who said that he who does not mourn on Hussein, there is something wrong with him. And he who rejoices at the death of Hussein, he's a fasiq, munafiq, and possibly a kafir. The Muslims love Imam Hussein. They love the Prophet and his family. We need to all understand that there is a lot of beauty. Hussein can be that point that brings about unity between the Muslims. And Muhammad and Al Muhammad and the noble companions of the Blessed Prophet are such exemplaries that if we were to take away the labels of Sunni Shia and present them in terms of their huge contribution and sacrifices, that the whole of humanity, be they theist or atheists, they will find inspiration through these grand people in terms of human value and spiritual substantive existence. And I have no doubt in that. So we can see that this penetrative love that we have for the Prophet and his family is a nurturing love. It makes us like them. Now look at Hussein ibn Ali. How beautiful is this man? He is being killed. And these are his supplications. At a point where he has lost most of what he had in terms of his children and companions, he says, Allahumma anta muta'aliul makan. Oh Allah, you are grand in your rank. That dua later on says, Mujib, Qareebun Mujib. You are near and proximate and you respond to everything. Akbar is killed. He says, Oh Lord, bear witness on their crimes. And then he says again, what makes this bearable is that my God is with me. Look at him amidst the trials on the day of Ashura. He is so dignified. He is so calm. He radiates. He does not break in desperation. He does not beg for mercy. He stands resilient as a brave warrior who derives his strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time does not lose sense of morality. He is picking water from the Euphrates or the Alqama. They say your tents are being looted. He forgets his thirst. And he says, oh people, if you have abandoned belief in God and you are not fearful of the accountability in the hereafter, then be free, man, in this life of yours at least. Kill me first and then advance towards my tent. Look at that dignity, that righteousness amidst the arrows and the swords. This is the real wilaya of Hussein that penetrates within the soul of every human who understands him. It is the night of Ashura. Imam Zainul Abidin reports that I was unwell. Zainab was nursing me. Hussein, in a close-by tent, begins to utter these words, O time, sorrow be your lot as a friend, for how many have awoken in your bosom, rejoicing in the morning, only for you to put them to rest before dusk. Thus is your nature, O time, you shall not rest until you have taken each and every one of us. Imam Zainul Abidin says, I understood what my father was saying. I choked, but did not allow myself to cry. Zainab was perplexed. He repeated these words again. Zainab ran to him and she said, then that means I will be left without a brother. He said, Zainab, my grandfather, father and brother were better than I. Time did not spare any of them. Death will take me away too. She beat her face and she says, oh brother, but who do I have aside from you? Oh Zainab, bear with patience. For all who come upon this earth must leave this earth. The life of the hereafter is an everlasting life, not the life of this world. Imam Hussein retreats in his tent. The enemies wish to mount an attack. Imam Hussein says, oh Abbas, ask them for a respite of one night. I wish to devote myself to Allah in the lonely hours of the night. Abbas asks them till morning. The respite is granted. It is said on that night, the way Imam Hussein and his companions prayed was such that many in the camp of Umar ibn Sa'd defected. They said, an outlaw, an evil person would not devote himself to God in this way. Some joined with Imam Hussein, some just left the battlefield. The night deepens. Zainab is anxious. Let me take news of my brother. She rushes to the tent of Imam Hussein. she finds the tent is unguarded. She feels a sense of rage and anger within her soul. How dare they leave his tent unguarded on such a night? She looks inside the tent and she sees Hussein busy in supplication and in prayers. Indeed, I shall go and ask Abbas, do you not guard the tent of my brother on this night? As she returns, she hears voices from the tent of Abbas. She peeks inside the tent and she sees that Abbas is in the middle of the tent, polishing his blade. Bani Hashim around him. He says, "O sons of Hashim, what shall you do tomorrow when the battle breaks out? O Abbas, O master, the command is yours. Order, and you shall find us complying and faithful." He says, "You will die first tomorrow, before the helpers of Hussein. Least anyone says that the family of Hussein, that Hussein favored his family above his companions." Zainab was overcome with emotions. Tears flowed from her eyes. She heard similar noises from the tent of Habib. She went close and she saw Habib in the middle of the tent, and the Ansar around Habib. He said, "O Ma'ashir al-Ansar, why have you left your homes and your wives? Why have you gathered in this bewilderness? What shall you do tomorrow when the battle breaks out? O Habib, O master, the command is yours. Order, and we shall execute. You will be the first ones to die tomorrow." Least anyone says that the companions of Hussein favored their lives above the family of Hussein. Zainab is overcome with tears. As she's retreating, she sees Hussein. When Hussein sees Zainab, she falls into a faint smile. He says, "Oh Zainab, you smile on such a night?" She explains to her brother of what she has seen and heard. He says, "Zainab, do you wish to know how faithful my companions are?" She says, "Indeed, O brother, test their resolve." He says, "Stand behind the tree." He calls out, "O Abbas, O sons of Hashim, hasten to me. O Habib, O Ansar, hasten to me." They all come running. Hussein stands there. He says, "They will put me to death tomorrow. By your dying, I will not be spared. I take away the pledge of allegiance from you. Take the cover of the night and save your lives and flee." No sooner had Hussein said this, that the Hashimi and the Ansar unsheathed their swords and they placed it upon their necks. And they said, "Oh, do you doubt our loyalty? Command us, and we shall behead ourselves." Hussein says, "By God, no prophet, no wasi has been given the companions of the like that I have been blessed with. All of you shall die tomorrow, and all of you shall inherit paradise." A little child stands and says, "Oh uncle, shall I too be able to die for you?" Hussein said, "Then know that you shall die, and so shall I. My daughters and sisters and wives will be taken as captives. Go, take your women folk to the Qabila of Bani Asad, that they may be saved from captivity." Ali ibn Madahir comes in his tent and he says to his wife, "I will take you and give you in the care of the Qabila of Bani Asad." She said, "Why?" She said, "Because Hussein said, we will all get killed tomorrow." So she said, "And what will happen to the sister of Hussein? She will be taken as captive. Sorrow be your lot, O Ali. Shall the daughter of the Prophet be taken as captive and your wife be spared? Go give your life with Hussein and let me be." he commended her. The night deepens. I narrate this narration taking poetic license. Bear with me. Hussein comes out into the plains of Karbala. Asbagh, or some of his companions, starts following him. Hussein hears his footsteps. He turns. He says, "Who?" He says, "I, O Hussein. Why do you come with me? Lest somebody attacks you." He said, "Draw near to me." He said, "Oh Hussein, what do you do?" "I wish to examine the plains of Karbala, the ditches, the trees, the elevated places, the places from whence the enemies can mount an attack and ambush." He comes to a place and he stops. He says, "Oh Hussein, why do you stop?" As if the arms of Abbas are fallen here. He moves forward. He comes to a place and uncontrollably sits. He said, "Oh Hussein, what will happen here?" It is as if I will be pleading for water for my little child. The battle commences. Abbas tastes death. Akbar is no longer. Habib and Muslim have all gone. Hussein ascends his steed and cries out, "Hal min Nasir yansuruna, Hal min Mughith yughithuna." Is there anyone who will come to our help? Is there anyone who will come and defend us? There is silence. There is no response. Hussein looks at the torn bodies of his soldiers and calls out, "Ya Fursan al-Hijah, O my brave soldiers, what has happened to you? Why have you fallen so silent? I call on to you, you respond not. I beg for assistance, you run not to me." Then Hussein says, "By God, that has deprived you of speech. If God were to instill life into your bodies again, you will come back to me." Lonely and wounded, Hussein calls out again, and there are cries from the tents. Hussein says, "Has a child died?" They say, "No, Hussein, but your child may die of thirst. Go and get some water for him." Hussein covers his asgar with his cloak. He goes towards the enemies. The way they depict the scene is, now he has come with the Quran to seek mercy. Hussein unveils the Quran that he holds in his hand. He raises the little child. He says, "Oh people, if you have enmities with me, what has this little child done to you? Do you not see how he dies of thirst? If you feel I will drink your water, I will put him to one side. Come and place a drop of water in his mouth." The enemies looked at the scene. They began to cry and they began to turn their faces away. Umar ibn Sa'd, fearing rebellion, he said to his swords, he said to his archer, "Hurmala, Hurmala, iqta' kalam al-Hussein." Hurmala, cut the speech of Hussein. Hurmala joins his arrow to the bow. We hear his hands tremble. Why, O Hurmala? Why do you not find the resolve to shoot down Hussein? He said, do you see that woman at the tent? Is she the child's mother? Finish him off, O Hurmala. Hussein stands with his Asghar, as if to say to Allah, O Lord, this is my final offering. I have no more. I have snatched him from a lap that has nothing else to give. Hurmala releases his arrow. Hussein is pleading with God. The arrow arrives, penetrates within the neck of Asghar. It is a three-headed arrow, and they say Asghar's neck is torn from ear to ear, and his head hangs. The child turns upon the hands of Hussein. The scene is so shocking that Hussein loses his senses. When the warm blood oozes from the neck of Asghar into the palms of Hussein, an old father realizes what has happened. He begins to tremble violently, unable to contain himself. He looks towards the heavens turn away. He looks to the earth trembles. He cups the blood and applies it to his beard. He says, "O child, like this shall we come upon your father, your grandfathers on the day of Qiyamah." Hussein finds the resolve, takes a few steps forward and cries out, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, ridan biqada'ihi wa tasliman li amri." He stops and retreats. I say, "Oh Hussein, why do you not find the resolve to take the child back to the tent? Have you not carried the body of your Qasim and Akbar? Oh Hussein, it is a weightless child." He looks to me and he says, "Oh man, little is that you understand. I brought him from a mother with a promise of giving him back to her. How may I return him in this state?" Hussein goes forward. The mother of Asghar runs to the tent. She says, "Oh Hussein, hand me my child." Hussein lifts his abba. When she sees her Asghar, she says, "Oh child, are you shot down like a camel?" Matame Hussein.